He hadn't heard the word Earth spoken aloud in over 2 decades. Not in the fleet, not on the colonies, not in the back alleys of fringe stations or the blood-washed bars of Meridian Sector 9. Earth was a myth, a broken rock, a name whispered in contempt by aliens who thought the species that birthed fire and violence had long gone extinct. But then it came. A signal. One frequency. One voice. One warship. From nowhere. The first time Joran saw the vessel on the outer rim scanners, his gut twisted like it used to back in the trenches of the Proxima uprising. It wasn't just the signature. It was the silence that followed. No ID tags. No alliance codes. No transponder. Just a shape moving slow across the black, massive and quiet, like death on approach. And then it spoke, not in their tongue, not in trade code, but in something older, deeper, rough and guttural, English. UNSC Vindication requesting immediate surrender of all foreign vessels in violation of Terran sovereignty. You have 30 seconds to comply. Joran wasn't on a military ship anymore. He'd left that behind after the war, after they'd lost. The Terran resistance had splintered, scattered, most of them dead. The rest buried in mining colonies or smuggling gigs like him, hauling scrap to survive. Heads down so the Dominion patrols wouldn't bother scanning too close. He remembered sitting in the cockpit of his rust bucket freighter, just orbiting out of Greel 2, when he saw the first light. It wasn't like anything he'd seen before. Not alien tech, not Syndicate, not the Dominion's polished, soulless dreadnoughts. This ship moved like it wanted to be seen, like it wanted to be feared. And when the Vindication fired, the sky broke. He watched, frozen, as the Dominion's forward assault fleet, 11 ships in formation, turned to ash in 9 seconds. 9 seconds. That wasn't war. That was a god reaching down and snapping the spine of everything that thought itself invincible. Panic spread fast across comms. Distress beacons, emergency codes, orders screamed in 50 dialects. No response from the warship. No follow-up. Just silence. Joran found his hands shaking as he set his vessel into a covert arc toward the debris field. He didn't know what he was doing. Suicidal instinct, maybe. But something in his blood pulled him toward that black monolith floating in the remains of the Dominion's pride. Then he saw it. The flag. Torn, but there. Painted across the hull, white and blue. A patch of stars. Earth's old military emblem, the kind they used before everything collapsed. He didn't know if he should laugh or weep. Earth had a warship. Not a rumor. Not some salvaged pirate tech. A full-sized, still operational Terran supercarrier, fitted with weaponry that should have been outlawed by 10 galactic accords. Weaponry no human resistance group could have built in 1,000 years. So where the hell had it come from? More importantly, why now? Joran's ship drifted close enough to catch the magnetic bleed-off of the Vindication's shields. That close, he could see the turrets realigning. Slowly, deliberately. The sensors on his panel flickered, then died. One by one. Lights went dark, thrusters froze. It wasn't an EMP. The Vindication had simply decided his ship was done moving. Then a comlink opened. A voice came through, deep and cracked with age. Human. Male. Calm. Unidentified Terran vessel. You are in range. State your name. Joran hesitated. His throat felt like it was closing. He hadn't said his real name over a transmission in 15 years. He leaned in, cleared his throat, and answered like a man being called back from the dead. Joran Thale, former Earth Fleet, serial 39VX021, out of Proxima. There was a pause, the kind that made your soul sweat. Then the voice replied, "Welcome home, Commander Thale." Joran stared at the console as if it had just called out to him in a dead man's voice. Commander Thale. No one had called him that in over a decade. Not since the Earth fleet collapsed and the Dominion swept through like locusts, burning colonies and erasing names. Not since he buried half his unit on Varela 4 and left the rest to rot in unmarked graves. He didn't know whether to be angry or grateful. The Vindication, for all its godlike firepower, hadn't finished with him yet. The ship rotated on its axis, a move too smooth, too deliberate, too human. As it turned, the massive hangar bay opened like a steel mouth. Dim lights flickered along the entry tunnel, beckoning. His systems remained dead. He couldn't steer, couldn't power up, couldn't retreat. Not that he wanted to. The voice spoke again. "Docking protocol initiated. Do not resist." Joran sat back, eyes narrowing. His instincts screamed. This wasn't a rescue, this was a test. No one just welcomes you home from a ghost fleet with that tone. It was too flat, too military. They knew who he was. They pulled his file before he even spoke. And yet here he was, being reeled in like a fish on a line. Metal arms extended from the Vindication's underbelly and clamped onto his ship, dragging it toward the dock. As he passed under the hull, he saw the scars along the warship's plating. Not from recent battle. These were old, charred, repaired crudely. This ship had seen hell, and it had survived. His freighter was lowered gently into a bay that could fit 4 of them side by side. The moment the arms released him, the hatch unlocked itself with a hiss. Still no power, still no control. He stood slowly. Old bones, worn boots, scarred knuckles. Same man, different war. He strapped on his sidearm, not because he thought it would help, but because it made him feel like he wasn't walking into a grave. Then he hit the ramp and stepped out. The air in the hangar was stale but breathable. The gravity adjusted a bit too late, jerking his knees. Lights flickered to life along the ceiling, revealing the gray and black steelwork that defined Earth's war tech. No frills, just function. It was like stepping into the past. Before the Dominion. Before everything fell apart. 3 figures waited for him at the far end of the bay. 2 in dark gray armored suits, faceless, rigid, still, and 1 man, older, standing tall. No helmet. His face was all angles and bitterness, thin beard. Cold gray eyes. Joran stopped halfway, arms loose at his sides. The man approached with military precision, boots echoing like drums. "Joran Thale," the man said, voice made of gravel. "You're a hard man to find." Joran didn't answer right away. He studied the man's uniform. No nameplate, no insignia. Just the black sun stitched on the right shoulder. He remembered that symbol from old resistance chatter. Rumors. A rogue Terran faction. Ghosts operating beyond the edge of known space. Supposedly wiped out. Apparently not. "You gonna shoot me or ask me why I'm still alive?" Joran asked. The man's mouth twitched, somewhere between a smirk and contempt. "If I wanted you dead, you wouldn't be breathing. We need men like you." "You sure I'm still that kind of man?" "You survived Proxima. That counts." "Proxima broke everyone?" "Good. Then you're exactly what we need." Joran felt his heart ticking faster. He hated recruiters, hated speeches, but something about this didn't feel like a pitch. This wasn't an offer. It was a summons. The man gestured for him to follow. "I'm Commander Rain, operational lead of the Vindication. You're not here by accident. You were pulled in because the system flagged your ID code." "Deep Earth priority." "Deep Earth's dead," Joran muttered. Rain didn't stop walking. "Then explain this ship." He had a point. They passed through reinforced corridors that looked barely maintained, rust in corners, plating warped from internal heat, the ship's guts showing in places. And yet, it was alive. The hum in the walls, the low pulse of power. It wasn't a derelict. It was a monster sleeping with one eye open. "We've been off the grid for 22 years, Rain said, operating from the Kuiper Outlands. Subspace folds, untraceable jumps, deep cover." He paused, looked over his shoulder. "While the rest of humanity fell to its knees, we prepared." "For what?" Joran asked. Rain turned sharply into a large chamber. One side of the room was a display wall, showing real-time data, Dominion patrol routes, trade sectors, Terran refugee movements. The other half held a round table surrounded by 8 chairs, 2 already occupied, a younger officer in medical garb, and a woman in tactical armor, scar across her jaw, arms folded tight. Rain didn't introduce them. He tapped the display and pointed to a blinking red system near the outer rim. 3 days ago, he said, the Dominion intercepted a civilian Terran freighter near Bastion 7. No contraband, no resistance. They boarded anyway, executed everyone on board, a warning, a statement. Joran's jaw clenched. "They're escalating," Rain said. "They want to break every last trace of Earth's name." Joran looked at the star map. "So, you want to retaliate?" "We already did." Rain zoomed out on the map. "You saw it happen," he continued. "That wasn't a warning shot. That was justice. And now?" He pointed to the right side of the map, where dozens of Dominion signals were converging. "Now they're coming." Joran turned to him slowly. "Then why pull me in? You think I can help?" Rain didn't blink. "I know you can." The woman finally spoke. Her voice was steel on bone. "Because you led Omega Battalion on the siege of Carthus 9, held the line with no reinforcements. Your men lasted 7 days. You pulled out 17 survivors. That makes you a relic, but a dangerous one." Joran gave her a sideways glance. "And what are you?" "Recon Division. I kill myths before they grow teeth." "Charming." Rain stepped between them before sparks could fly. "This isn't a recruitment, Thale. This is a necessity. The Vindication isn't fully crewed. We're running on ghost protocols." "You know Earth fleet procedures better than anyone we still have." "What do you want me to do?" Joran asked flatly. "Command a strike wing." Joran laughed once. "I haven't led anything in years." "Then it's time you remembered how." There was silence in the room, thick and heavy. Joran walked slowly to the edge of the display wall, watching the Dominion signals swarm like flies. "You strike them again," he said, "and they'll retaliate harder. They'll turn this sector into ash." "We're counting on it," Rain said. Joran turned. "You want war?" Rain's eyes burned. "I want fear. I want every Dominion officer to hesitate before they touch a Terran ship. I want the galaxy to remember that Earth never yielded, that we went dark so we could strike from the shadows." It was madness, and it made Joran's blood run hot with something he hadn't felt in years. Pride. The Dominion thought Earth was gone. That humanity had accepted its place beneath the heel. But here, on this ship, in this forgotten corner of the stars, they were sharpening the blade. Rain stepped closer. "We can burn quietly for another 20 years, or we can break the silence now and remind them who we are." Joran looked around the room. The battered steel. The people willing to die in it, the ghosts of Earth's past clinging to the walls. He nodded once. "Then I'll need a wing, and a warbird that still flies." Rain smiled, grim and satisfied. "We've got something better." An hour later, Joran stood before his new vessel. It wasn't polished. It wasn't pretty. It was ugly, brutal, covered in patchwork plating and stripped Dominion parts. 2 reverse-thrust engines, dual plasma lances, and something mounted under the hull that didn't belong to any known species. "Experimental tech," the engineer explained, walking him through it. "Reverse-engineered from a crashed Qatari dreadnought. Fires a gravitational inversion pulse, not stable, but fun. Joran stepped into the cockpit. Everything came back like muscle memory. Switches, controls, HUD. He sat down, ran a systems check, watched the engine purr to life. A message flashed on the screen. Wing designation, Scorpion 1, operational status, Vindication protocol enabled. He exhaled slowly. Outside, the Vindication's hangar opened. Stars spread across the black like spilled salt. Rain's voice crackled through comms. "Scorpion Wing, you are cleared for launch!" Joran tightened his harness, hand hovering over the throttle. This wasn't just a mission. It was a resurrection. As the engines flared and the hull rattled, he muttered 4 words under his breath. Soft, bitter, but sure. Earth is not finished, and then he launched. Joran had flown death before. He'd piloted gunships through asteroid storms, navigated through orbital sieges with Dominion lasers peeling paint from his hull, and led men into doomed battles because someone back home needed another propaganda victory. But none of it felt like this. The cockpit of Scorpion 1 hummed with raw energy, and beneath his hands the controls trembled like they couldn't wait to kill something. The ship wasn't a vessel. It was a predator. Pieced together from the bones of the Dominion and Earth's last surviving genius engineers. No bureaucracy, no restraint, just power. And Joran was its nerve system. The launch from the Vindication was like being fired from a cannon. He burst into the black, followed by 5 more fighters, each cobbled together like war-born mutants. The entire wing was ugly as sin, fast as light, and built to maim. He switched to formation comms. "Scorpion Wing, sound off. Scorpion 2, locked and ready. 3's good, weapons green. 4 here, nice ride you got us, boss. 5, flight path synced. When 6, let's make 'em bleed." Voices, human, some old, some young. All of them carried something in their tone, something Joran hadn't heard in years. Purpose. He took a breath. "Our target is a Dominion forward relay station orbiting Archos Prime, automated defense grid. 1 cruiser docked, minimal ground presence. Rain wants it gone. He wants them rattled." "Copy that," Scorpion 2 said. Shock and awe. Joran's eyes narrowed as the stars bent around him in subspace fold. No awe, just shock. The jump was brutal. No Dominion hyperlanes, no safety corridors. Earth's tech used old wormhole architecture repurposed from stolen alien tech. Efficient, unstable, and prone to snapping pilots' bones if they didn't brace right. But Joran held firm. When the black peeled away, Archos Prime loomed beneath them like a rotten marble. Dark green atmosphere, oily oceans, storm systems flashing like slow lightning. The relay station hung above it, a skeletal ring tethered to an orbital spine. Alien tech, too pristine, too arrogant. A Dominion patrol cutter drifted nearby, engines idling, unaware. Good. "Scorpion Wing, we hit fast and loud," Joran said. 3 minutes max. 2, you take the west flank. 3 and 4, disable the dock. 5 and 6, handle the cutter. "What about you?" someone asked. Joran's lips curled into something cold. "I'm going through the front door." And then he dove. The ship screamed as he plummeted toward the station, lights flickering across his HUD as enemy sensors finally picked him up. Too late. By the time they began targeting protocols, Joran was already cutting across their radar arrays. He lined up a plasma shot and let it go. One lance of fire that tore through a command deck like it was paper. Alarms blared across the station, but the damage had been done. Chaos bloomed. "Direct hit on comms," Scorpion 2 confirmed. "They're blind." 5 and 6, status? "Cutter's dead," came the reply. Didn't even have time to spin up their shields. 3 and 4. Docks disabled. Explosive charges set for remote detonation. Joran circled back around, dodging burst fire from the relay's last functional turret. He targeted the base of the orbital spine, the power core junction. The ship gave a hungry growl as the targeting system locked. Then he fired. The explosion lit up the planet's upper atmosphere, casting long shadows across the storm clouds below. "Core's gone," Joran muttered. "Relay's falling." He watched the station begin to tilt. Chunks of debris spun into orbit. Flames licked at the structure as atmosphere vented in bursts. "Wing, regroup back to the fold point." They didn't argue. They didn't hesitate. They followed. Back on the Vindication, the hangar crew moved like soldiers, not mechanics. No celebration, no high fives. Just rearming, refueling, and quiet nods. They'd won. But this wasn't a war where you cheered after one hit. It was a message, and the whole galaxy would hear it. Rain stood waiting near the docking ramp, arms crossed, face unreadable. "Well done," he said. "They'll feel that one." "They'll do more than feel it," Joran replied. "They'll come for us." "I hope so." Joran studied him. "You really want to bait the Dominion?" Rain shrugged. "They're not used to being punched, especially not by ghosts." He walked beside Joran as the crew moved around them. "This isn't a war of attrition," Rain said. "We're not here to retake planets or liberate sectors. We're here to remind the galaxy that Earth never died. And the more we bleed them, the more others start to remember what it meant to be human." "You're building a rebellion." "I'm building a reckoning." Joran didn't argue, but the silence that followed left room for doubt. That night, he couldn't sleep. Not because of fear. He didn't feel fear the same way anymore. It was more like the hum of static, always present, never quite overwhelming. It was the silence that haunted him. He stood in his quarters, staring at an old photo tucked inside his wrist guard. A woman and a boy. Smiling. Back before Proxima. Back before he stopped believing in happy endings. They were gone now. Burned in the same fire that took his faith. But something about the Vindication stirred the ashes. He slipped the photo back and walked out. The ship was quieter at night, though time didn't matter out here. No stars to mark the hours, just the low thrum of engines and the distant mutter of generators keeping life in the bones of this beast. He walked the upper decks, past sealed hangars and locked compartments. The deeper he went, the older the ship seemed. Less repaired, less cared for. Until he reached a section marked Project Remnant, authorized access only. No guards, no cameras, just a sealed door. He shouldn't have been able to open it. But the panel blinked green the second he touched it, and it let him in. The chamber inside was colder. Dim blue lights illuminated a wide room lined with containment units. 20 at least. Some dark, some still humming. And in the center, a stasis pod. Larger, reinforced, scarred from the inside. Joran walked closer, breath catching in his throat. A man floated inside, suspended in pale green fluid. Wires through his spine. Mask across his face. His body was massive, engineered, muscles like armor. But it wasn't the physique that held Joran in place. It was the face. He knew that face. Commander Dale, Earth's last general, declared dead after the siege of Soulgate, a man who led humanity's final stand, a martyr carved into stone on every rebel world. And yet, here he was, preserved, sleeping. Joran backed away slowly, mind spinning. Before he could speak, a voice spoke from the shadows. "Only a few know he's still alive." Rain stepped into the light, hands behind his back. "We recovered him from the ruins of Soulgate, barely alive, put him under, rebuilt what we could. The body's healing, the mind still fractured." "Why keep him hidden?" Joran asked, voice low. "Because when he wakes up, the war changes." Rain walked over to the pod, staring at it like a believer at an altar. He was more than a commander. He was a symbol, and symbols need the right moment to rise. Too early, and he's just a man. But if we wait, if we make them bleed, then wake him. Rain turned. We give the galaxy a legend again. Joran didn't like it. He didn't like secrets, or gods made of broken men. But he also couldn't deny the fire it lit inside him. Hope, twisted and weaponized. Later, as he returned to his quarters, a new alert hit the ship's internal comms. Incoming transmission intercepted. Source: Dominion High Command. Message decrypted. Target: the Vindication. Joran leaned against the wall, listening as the voice came through. Deep, cold, alien. To the vessel bearing Earth's mark, you have committed an act of war. We tolerated your ghosts, but ghosts cannot bleed, and you will. Soon. Joran smiled to himself. Try us. The Dominion didn't send a warning shot this time. They sent a fleet. It happened just before cycle shift. The Vindication's long-range sensors lit up in red, and within 2 minutes, the command deck was swarming. Rain stood at the center, arms folded, eyes locked on the incoming markers flooding the holo map. 32 vessels. Not scouts, not patrols, warships, dreadnoughts, a siege-class destroyer leading them. The message had been clear. Ghosts can't bleed. Now the Dominion meant to prove it. Joran arrived at the deck, half-dressed, flight suit zipped halfway, his boots barely buckled. He moved through the crew without a word, stepping beside Rain, his eyes scanning the data as it updated in real time. They're overcompensating, Joran said. We took out a relay station and they send this? They want to make an example, Rain muttered. They know someone's watching. He tapped the side of the console, zooming in on the formation. They're not just hunting us, they're broadcasting the hunt. Open channels. They want other systems to see them kill us. Then we don't die, Joran said. He turned toward the comms officer. Put me through to all crew stations. I want everyone listening. The officer hesitated, then nodded. Joran stepped forward, the lights of the command console painting his face in shadows. This is Joran Thiel, he began, his voice steady, low. Some of you know that name. Some don't. Doesn't matter. What matters is what's coming. The room had gone still. Dominion ships, 32 of them, heading straight for us. Full firepower, full numbers. They think this ends here. They think they'll find another dead ship with human bones floating in the airlocks. He looked around, meeting eyes. They don't know what they're walking into. Silence. Then he leaned in slightly. We are the reminder that Earth doesn't bow, that it didn't die, that it was quiet because it was waiting. Now he raised his voice, not shouting, but filled with weight. They want to make an example out of us? Fine, let them try. We make them pay for every second they spend chasing ghosts. He turned back to the holomap. Battle stations. Seal the decks. Ready the Scorpion wing. We're not surviving this. We're making history. The corridors of the Vindication transformed. Red lights pulsed. Bulkheads sealed. Armor plates slid into place over key systems. Gun batteries along the hull extended and locked into position. Engineers sprinted between bays, yelling over each other, feeding ammunition belts into forgotten turrets that hadn't been used in decades. Joran was back in the hangar, slipping into his suit, checking his gear. Scorpion 2. A woman named Kella tightened her gloves as she watched the chaos around them. You ever fought 30 ships before? She asked. Only in nightmares. Kella chuckled. Figures. They both turned as the deck shook, barely a tremor, but enough to signal the first signs of Dominion entry into the outer system. We won't outrun them, she said. No, Joran agreed, but we can break their line. He climbed into Scorpion 1. As the cockpit sealed, he tapped into the secure comms. "Rain," he said, "what's the plan?" There was a pause. Then Rain's voice came, colder than usual. "We hit them before they hit us. Surprise strike. We take out their flanks, force them to bunch together, make it harder for their heavy weapons to track fast targets." "And the Vindication?" "She holds position, fires when she sees blood." Joran wasn't sure if he liked that answer. The Scorpion Wing launched into the void like a swarm of hornets. Joran led them on a tight curve, pushing engines to maximum burn. The Dominion fleet emerged on the edge of visual range, black ships with bone-white insignias, moving in a wide crescent. Cold, precise, arrogant. "Keep comms tight," Joran said. "We want them confused, not entertained." Then he dove. His ship streaked past the forward line of Dominion vessels, skimming just above their sensor dome, before banking hard into the underbelly of a cruiser. He fired once, just once. A plasma bolt tore into the ship's shielding array and detonated the engine conduit. The Dominion vessel buckled like a dying beast. Just like that. "Target down," he called. The rest of Scorpion Wing followed. The stars lit up with streaks of red and blue as both sides fired blindly into the chaos. The Vindication remained distant, silent, looming, waiting. Joran knew what Rain was doing. He wanted them to overcommit, to pull too close. He wanted to trigger the trap, but something felt wrong, too easy, too smooth. "3, what's your status?" "Engaged. Took light damage, no critical. Wait." Static. 3? Nothing. 4, report. 3's gone. Hit by something. Fast. Didn't even see it. Joran's eyes narrowed. He brought up the tactical scanner. No anomalies. No new ships. But something was out there. He switched channels. "Rain, we've got cloaked assets in the field. Dominion's using tech we haven't seen before." Static again. No reply. The line was still active. Rain had heard him, but he didn't answer. Back on the Vindication, things were unraveling. Rain stood alone at the command deck, eyes on the central monitor, watching as his fighters were picked off. 1, 2, 4. Precision kills. Not like Dominion strategy at all. They weren't attacking in waves. They were hunting. A junior officer ran up behind him, panicked. "Sir, we've picked up an anomaly near the lower hull. Something's attached. External structure breach detected." Rain turned slowly. "How long ago?" 6 minutes? And he hadn't been notified. That shouldn't have been possible. He tapped into the shipwide logs. Manually. And that's when he saw it. A command override. Level 9 authorization. Not his. Someone aboard the Vindication had disabled early warning protocols. Someone wanted them blind. Joran was still flying when his HUD went red. Not damage. Something else. Warning. Proximity interference detected. He blinked, looked to his left. Out of nowhere, a black shape uncloaked. Long, needle-like. No lights, no signature, but unmistakably Dominion. It shouldn't exist. The ship darted toward him, and Joran yanked hard left, feeling the strain pull at his ribs. Plasma flared past his wing. His ship spun, and he barely corrected before firing 2 blind shots over his shoulder. One struck. The enemy vessel peeled off, smoking. 6. Cover me! On it! 6 exploded. Just like that. Joran's hands slammed the controls. "Rain, respond! We're getting cut to pieces. Where the hell is support?" Nothing. He switched to General Fleet comms. "This is Commander Thale. Dominion is deploying stealth-class interceptors. We're compromised. I repeat, we are compromised." The Vindication finally moved. Turrets rotated. Cannons charged. And then, the main cannon fired. But not at the Dominion. It fired at Joran. The shot missed. Barely. It wasn't a kill shot. It was a warning. Joran spun his ship back, fury boiling in his throat. He opened a direct channel. "Rain, if you're still breathing, You better start explaining. And Rain answered. Cold. Calm. I gave you a war, Thale. You just didn't ask who the enemy was. Joran went still. What did you do? I lit the match, that's all. The Dominion's been soft since Earth fell. Arrogant, comfortable. They needed a reason to be afraid again. You sacrificed our people. Rain didn't deny it. They died for something that matters, for the future of humanity. Joran's jaw tightened. You're insane! I'm necessary. The comm cut, and every Dominion ship turned and stopped firing. They went still, as if someone had flipped a switch. And Joran understood. Rain hadn't just planned this strike. He'd coordinated with the enemy. Not all of them, just enough. A faction. A deal. Let us bleed. Then we rise together. Back on the Vindication, internal alarms sounded, but no one was running, because most of the crew already knew. They weren't Earth loyalists. They were remnants. Followers of a new order, Rain's order, and the rest, those still loyal to the old Earth, were being purged, one by one, below deck. Joran knew he had one chance. He veered hard toward the flank of the Vindication, flying low under its belly. Lasers tracked him. Turrets fired. He didn't dodge. He activated the Qatari pulse cannon, that unstable alien tech strapped beneath his hull. The charge built. The ship groaned. Lights flickered. Then he released it. A wave of gravitational distortion hit the Vindication's lower decks, frying systems, bending steel, shorting power grids across 3 compartments, enough to disable her guns, enough to buy time. He pulled away as fire spilled from one engine vent. All remaining Scorpion pilots, if you're still alive, disengage. We're compromised. The Vindication is not what we thought. Only Kella answered. Copy, heading your way. Later. Hiding in a magnetic storm just off the wreck field of Archos, Joran stared at his display, listening to static. The war had changed. This wasn't humanity versus Dominion anymore. This was worse. This was betrayal. And Rain. He'd built a war not to win back Earth, but to remake it in his own image. Joran would stop him, even if it meant killing every ghost that still flew the Terran flag. Joran hadn't slept in 30 hours. Not because he couldn't, because he wouldn't. The moment you rested out here, something found you. A heat signature. A flicker of comms noise. A forgotten locator ping that hadn't been scrubbed properly. That was how the Dominion hunted during the Purge Wars, through exhaustion. They didn't need to kill you fast. They just needed you too tired to run. He leaned back in the pilot seat of Scorpion 1, a nutrient tube between his teeth. Not because he was hungry, but because it gave him something to bite. Across from him, Kella floated in the co-pilot's jump seat, curled into a half-sleep, boots still on, pistol strapped to her thigh. The hangar was gone. The Vindication was no longer home. They were drifters now, just like old times. Only now, the enemy had their face. The silence was broken by static. Then a voice. Kella's eyes snapped open. Repeat. Emergency broadcast. Unencrypted. Multiple sectors receiving. Joran patched the feed through. It was a Dominion voice. One of their diplomats. Neutral tone, condescending diction, all synthetic calm. A rogue faction operating under the Terran designation Vindication has committed an act of destabilization. The Dominion High Council has terminated joint negotiations and withdrawn recognition of all remaining Earth-aligned refugee planets. Effective immediately, systems harboring Terran survivors will be treated as insurgent collaborators. Joran muted the broadcast. Kella sat up slowly. Well. Rain got what he wanted. Joran didn't reply. His hands rested on the controls, knuckles white. He burned every bridge left, she said. Now every Terran outpost, Every colony that's been hiding under Dominion radar, they'll be exposed, targeted, executed. He doesn't care, Joran muttered. He never did. What does he care about? Joran exhaled, long and slow. Legacy. They landed on a forgotten relay moon called Arendex 7, a dead speck of dust between systems. The place had once been a covert storage depot during the fall of Earth Fleet, a kind of emergency bunker for evac data cores, off-the-record logs, Black Ops project backups. If the Dominion knew about it, they hadn't found it. Yet. Joran led the way down the narrow descent ramp, rifle in hand, boots crunching against red-gray gravel. The wind here didn't howl. It groaned, like it was tired of being ignored for so long. Kelle scanned the surface. You sure this is the place? Level 5 asset in my Earth Fleet days, he said. I used this drop point once, before Proxima. It was a ghost then. Should still be now. They reached the hatch, a metal door half buried in rock. Kelle helped clear debris while Joran used a cracked wrist console to reroute the signal pulse. It took a minute, then the door clicked. They went inside. The bunker was still functional. Dust coated the floors, lights flickered. Old Earth tech, pre-collapse, still somehow humming with backup power. They moved slowly, weapons raised until they reached the central archive chamber. It looked like a crypt. Dozens of data vaults lined the walls. No screens, no AI, just raw crystal banks and hard-wired modules. Kelle whistled low. Anything pre-Dominion isn't even readable anymore, she said. Half the galaxy runs on their OS. Joran nodded. That's why this place matters. They can't hack what they don't understand. He stepped toward the core console and began connecting his suit's uplink. I'm pulling everything tied to Project Remnant. Everything Rain buried. Kelle paced the room while the transfer began. Her voice was quiet. You think this is bigger than just ambition? Joran didn't look up. I think Rain's trying to rewrite the fall of Earth. Why? He finally looked at her. Because he thinks Earth didn't fall. Kelle stared. Then the data finished transferring, and the truth made her knees weak. Project Remnant wasn't just a survival plan, it was a replacement doctrine. The recovered files detailed operations that began before Earth's collapse, contingencies for failure seeded among the outer colonies, meant not to preserve the past, but to erase it. Every major Terran command officer had a psychological profile on file. Projected loyalty arcs, predictive aggression indexes. Hundreds were flagged for disposal. General Dale was one of them. Kelle scrolled through the footage of Dale's last battle, the siege of Solgate. But the angle was new. This wasn't from the fleet's records. This was from Rain's ship. Dale had been betrayed. He didn't go down fighting. He was gunned down by one of his own. The recording cut just before the execution shot. Kelle turned away, jaw locked. He wasn't saved. Joran's face was stone. No, he was taken. And now they were keeping him in stasis. A trophy. A weaponized myth waiting to be reprogrammed and reawakened. Earth's last general would rise again, but only when Rain could control the outcome. He's going to use him, Kelle whispered. Dale will be the face of this new Earth, the Remnant, but he'll be hollow. Joran nodded grimly. Which means we stop it. They left Arendex 7 with the data files and the coordinates of a covert Terran listening post, one still off the Dominion grid. A chance to regroup, maybe even recruit. But Joran knew time was short. The Vindication had gone dark, not hidden. Waiting, he could feel it. Do you think Rain knows we're still alive? Kelle asked, as they made the jump to the next system. Oh, he knows, Joran said. He just hasn't decided how to kill us yet. She leaned her head back against the seat. Then we hit first. He glanced at her. That wasn't a question. It was war logic. He approved. The listening post was hidden on an ice moon, embedded beneath a frozen sea. They approached low, engines quiet. The outer beacon recognized Joran's command ID instantly. Someone was still out there. Inside they found 7 survivors. Old resistance, engineers, a few ex-Earth fleet operators. No one Rain had considered useful enough to bring aboard the Vindication, which meant they still had their souls. One of them, an old tactician named Grell, welcomed Joran like he was seeing a ghost. "Didn't think anyone survived the betrayal," Grell said. "We heard the Vindication turned." "It didn't turn," Joran said. "It was always built to." Grell showed them a reconstructed Dominion data leak, a map of fleet movements around Terran refugee planets. "They're using Rain's attacks as pretext," he said. "They're wiping out everything. No hesitation. Women, kids, doesn't matter." Kella leaned against a wall, arms folded tight. "They're not trying to stop the Remnant. They're helping it." Grell nodded. "They want the war, the chaos. Makes the galaxy easier to manage when humans are divided. Always has." Joran stepped closer to the holomap. "Then we cut off the head." "Rain." "No," Joran said. "Dale." Everyone looked at him. "If they wake him," Joran said, "and he speaks under their banner, it's over. Every resistance cell, every colony, they'll kneel. Not because of fear, but hope." He pointed to the blinking dot on the screen. "The Vindication isn't just a ship anymore. It's a symbol. And like any symbol." He locked eyes with Kella. "It can be destroyed." Later that night, Joran stood on the comm deck, alone, eyes locked on a star cluster in the distance. He remembered Soulgate. Not the battle, the evacuation. He'd seen Dale once, just once. The man had been bleeding, barely able to walk, but his voice had carried across the entire hangar bay as he ordered the last transport ships out. "You don't protect Earth by dying for it," he'd said. "You protect it by making sure the people who replace you don't forget why you fought." Now Rain was twisting that memory into a weapon. Joran clenched his fists. He wouldn't let them turn Dale into a puppet. Not on his watch. The Vindication hung in orbit above a dead planet like a blade waiting to fall. No lights, no transmissions, no movement. To the Dominion or any surviving Terran sensor grid, it looked abandoned, another casualty of the chaos it helped create. But Joran knew better. He watched from the stolen shuttle as the ship grew in the viewport, blotting out stars. His hands rested on the throttle, but he wasn't flying. Kella was. She knew the entry vectors better than he did. She'd reviewed every deck schematic, memorized patrol patterns, mapped escape routes, though they both knew escape was more of a hope than a plan. "This is a death trap," she muttered as the shuttle coasted under the Vindication's belly. No open channels, no active beacon, and still, I can feel it watching us. "It is," Joran said. "Then we're not walking out of this." "No." He looked at her. "But if we don't walk in, everything we fought for dies anyway." Kella didn't argue. She brought the shuttle into the magnetic underdeck, an old emergency intake port for damaged fighters. The kind of thing only a former pilot would know how to use. The clamps engaged silently. They were in. The corridor was dark, but not empty. Joran moved first, rifle raised, motion steady. Kella followed behind, covering angles, her steps silent. They wore old Earth Fleet infiltration gear, void black, sound dampened, equipped with cloaking modules that would work for maybe 90 seconds if they got spotted. After that, it was just grit and gunfire. The hallways were cleaner than they expected. Too clean. "This doesn't feel like a ship at war," Kella whispered. "Because it's not," Joran muttered. It's a shrine. They passed sealed doors marked with symbols, Remnant logos, Earth's old flag stylized and stripped of its history. Even the floor plating looked different, sleek, ordered, surgical. Rain wasn't running a rebellion. He was building a kingdom, and Dale was going to be his god. They reached the containment wing where the stasis chamber was housed. No alarms, no guards. That was the worst part. They want us here, Kella said, scanning the shadows. This whole thing is bait. I know, Joran said, but that pod still needs opening. The chamber doors hissed open. The room beyond was cold, sterile, blue-lit. And there he was. General Dale, still inside the pod, still suspended. The chamber was filled with monitoring gear now, neural link interfaces, genetic modifiers, atmospheric relays. They're rewiring him, Kella said softly. Psych conditioning while he sleeps, erasing everything. Joran stepped closer. The pod's control panel flickered at his presence, recognizing his old command code. Override in progress, he said. I'm pulling him out. Kella nodded, rifle pointed at the door. Do it fast. The fluid drained first, hissing into side vents. Dale's body dropped slowly onto the internal platform. Tubes detached one by one. His body twitched, once, then again. Then his eyes opened, faded blue, not shocked, not panicked, just tired. He sat up with effort, looked around, locked onto Joran's face, and spoke in a rasp. What year is it? Joran stepped forward. Too late for the Earth, you knew, but not too late to stop what they've turned it into. Dale's jaw worked as he tried to find his strength. They told me it was gone. It is. What they built from its bones isn't Earth. It's a weapon wearing its skin. Daihill looked around the room. Rain. Still alive, Joran said, but he's not your lieutenant anymore. He's the architect of something worse. Dale lowered his legs off the platform, trying to stand. He almost fell. Kella caught him. Easy, General, she said. He nodded once. Where's my sidearm? Joran gave a grim smile and handed him his old service pistol, recovered from a dead archive vault years ago. Somehow it had made its way back to him. Then let's finish this, Dale said. The trek to the command bridge wasn't quiet anymore. The moment the pod drained, the Vindication knew. Doors hissed open around them. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Remnant guards in polished armor, once Earthborn, now loyal to something else, began to close in. But they didn't rush. They followed, escorting them like pilgrims to a sermon. Joran knew what was waiting on the bridge, and who. The bridge doors were already open. Rain stood alone in the center, back turned, watching a holographic projection of the galaxy. Dominion sectors, Earth remnants, all flickering like stars. He didn't flinch as they entered. I thought you'd come sooner, he said. Joran raised his rifle. Shut it down. Rain finally turned. Which part? He asked. The fleet? The Remnant network? The plan to make humanity more than the crying. Broken thing it was? Dale's awake, Joran growled. Your weapon is offline. Rain smiled softly. He's not a weapon. He's a mirror. You think the man standing beside you is going to stop this? He gestured at Dale. He laid the foundation for everything I did. His orders, his strategy, his old-world loyalty to a system that couldn't win. You just never read the fine print. Dale stepped forward. His voice was rough but clear. I never ordered you to betray the people we swore to protect. You ordered me to ensure Earth survived, Rain snapped. You just didn't understand what survival required. He walked toward them, hands behind his back. You think we could have rebuilt Earth from pity? From treaties? We needed fear. We needed blood. And now the galaxy listens when we speak." Joran raised his weapon. "I'll give them something else to listen to." But Dale stepped between them. He faced Rain, eye to eye. "Stand down, son." Rain's face flickered, just once, with something human. Then it was gone. "No," he said, and with a flick of his wrist, the doors slammed shut. Alarms blared. Joran grabbed Kella and pulled her into cover as turrets emerged from the ceiling. Dale dove left, rolling behind a console, coughing blood. Gunfire ripped across the bridge. Rain ran, not like a coward, like a man with a destination. Joran followed, dodging fire, Kella behind him. "Go," she yelled. "I'll cover Dale." Joran didn't argue. Rain sprinted through the upper decks toward the central core room, the heart of the Vindication, where every override, every launch code, and every purge command resided. Joran caught up just as the doors slammed again. This time, he forced them with a breach charge. Inside, Rain stood at the central command pillar, hands dancing across the controls. "You can't stop it now," he said. "I've already sent the activation signal across 50 systems. The Remnant will rise in full force. The Dominion won't know who to shoot anymore." Joran stepped forward, rifle raised. "You'll burn every colony, every refugee outpost. You'll wipe out the last real pieces of Earth." "They were already gone!" Rain shouted, spinning. "You're clinging to corpses, Thale. I gave us purpose. I gave us a future." Joran's finger curled around the trigger, but Rain didn't reach for a weapon. He just smiled. "You want to kill me? Do it. But it won't change what's been set in motion." Behind him, the system console flickered, displaying the Remnant fleet routes. He was right. They were already moving. Then, another voice filled the room. Not Joran's, not Rain's. Dale's, broadcasted through the ship's comms. "This is General Dale, former command of Earth Fleet, current enemy of the Remnant. Any soldier loyal to me, to what we were before the blood and the lies, stand down." Joran glanced at the console. Dale had rerouted the comm override. "All Remnant vessels," Dale continued, "if you recognize my voice, know this. The man leading you is a traitor. He killed Earth a second time. Don't let him kill what's left of your soul." The lights dimmed. On screen, Remnant ship icons began to vanish, one by one. They weren't being destroyed. They were disengaging, defecting. Joran smiled. "Looks like some of us still remember what Earth was." Rain backed toward the core. "You won't win," he said. "You'll rebuild the same system that failed us." "No," Joran said, lowering his rifle. "We'll rebuild one that doesn't forget." And then Dale walked into the room, bloodied, limping, but upright. He raised his pistol, and he ended it. One shot. Clean. Rain collapsed. No words. Just silence. An hour later, the Vindication was under new command. Dale didn't take the title of Admiral. He didn't want thrones or parades. He just wanted truth restored. The Remnant was splintered now, fractured across systems, half of them defecting, the rest in hiding. The Dominion, suddenly outnumbered and confused, pulled back into neutral sectors. Joran stood on the bridge, watching as the stars shifted. Kella joined him. "You think this lasts?" she asked. "No," he said, "but that's not the point." She nodded, then added, "Earth didn't come back." "No," he agreed, "but maybe it woke up." The galaxy didn't celebrate. No parades, no declarations, no waving of forgotten flags. When the Remnant fractured and Rain died, most systems didn't even notice. A dozen fleets went dark. A few key Remnant colonies declared independence within hours. The Dominion suspended their aggression, but didn't retreat. They watched, waited. The Vindication remained in orbit over a neutral moon, quiet, damaged, still alive, and so was Joran Thale. He stood in what used to be Rain's personal command chamber. The room was cold now, stripped bare. Every databank wiped, every screen black. The map of Rain's dream no longer glowed here. Just silence. He placed a datapad on the table, full of logs, half of them still decrypted. Evidence of everything. The genetic projects, the planned purge of loyal Earth fleet officers. The assassination orders buried under strategic deniability. Rain hadn't just betrayed Earth. He'd planned it all from the beginning. Everything we fought for, Joran muttered, turned into this. Behind him, Kella leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Some of us were still fighting for the right thing, she said. He turned, eyes tired. And did we win? She didn't answer. Didn't have to. General Dale was in the medbay, refusing full region treatment. He said if he was going to lead, he needed the pain. He looked like death. Gaunt, weaker every day, but his voice hadn't lost its power. "You've seen the defectors?" he asked Joran when he visited. Joran nodded. "Almost half the Remnant fleet rerouted after your broadcast. We're getting signals from old colonies, some offering support, some just watching." Dale coughed, wiped blood from his lip. "They're afraid," he said. "Not of me, of Hope." Joran sat beside the bed. He didn't know what to say to that. "You think we broke the Dominion's grip?" Dale asked. "No," Joran said. "We cracked it, that's all." Dale closed his eyes. "Good. That's how fire starts." Later, on the lower decks, Joran walked through the hangar alone. Scorpion 1 had taken heavy damage in the battle. She was patched together now, barely flight-worthy. He ran a hand across her hull. "You're still breathing, too." He wasn't sure if he meant the ship or himself. Kella found him there an hour later. "Grell's calling a summit," she said. "What's left of the Terran fleet, refugee leaders, civilian survivors, engineers, exiles, everyone who still gives a damn." "When?" 3 days, Outpost 9L. He nodded. She waited a beat, then asked what had been waiting in the air between them for days. "You going?" Joran didn't answer right away. He sat down on a metal crate and leaned forward, elbows on knees. "I'm tired, Kella. Everyone's tired." "No, I mean, in my bones. Like it doesn't end. I kill the enemy, then I kill the traitor, then I kill the idea. But the fire never goes out. There's always something else burning." She walked closer, sat beside him. "The fire's part of it," she said. "But it's not all of it. Not anymore." He looked at her. "What are we even building now? Earth's dead. Rain tried to raise it like a corpse puppet. Dale's too broken to stand for long. We've got pieces of ships, fragments of truth, and ghosts in our lungs." Kella leaned forward, too. "Then maybe it's not about rebuilding Earth." Joran squinted. "What then?" She smiled, faint, sharp, bitter. "Maybe it's about replacing it." 3 days later, Joran landed on Outpost 9L. It wasn't much, just a salvaged station orbiting a gas giant in the uncharted rim. The place smelled of grease and old failure. But it was full. Packed. Hundreds of humans. No longer hiding. There were soldiers in mismatched uniforms, pilots with unregistered wings, engineers with old fleet patches sewn beside pirate logos, families wearing scavenged armor, children staring up at Terran flags like they didn't even know what they meant. Joran walked through the halls, silent, eyes scanning every face. He saw grief. He saw scars. But he also saw defiance. They weren't beaten. Not yet. The summit was held in a large cargo chamber, converted into a forum. Everyone stood. No chairs, no tables. This wasn't a meeting of equals, it was a reckoning. Grell opened the floor. A few spoke. One man argued for isolationism. "Let Earth stay buried. We're alive because we ran. We stay that way by staying hidden." Another woman, a fleet officer with burns across her face, spoke louder. "We owe it to the dead. Rain doesn't get the last word. If we walk away now, we prove him right, that we were never worth saving." Then someone asked the question that burned in everyone's throat. "What do we call ourselves now?" No one answered. They all looked to Dale, but he wasn't there. Joran stepped forward instead. Silence fell like gravity. He didn't speak from a podium. He didn't raise his voice. He just said the truth. "Earth isn't a place anymore," he said. "It's not a planet. It's not even a memory, it's a word." He looked around. "A word that still makes people afraid." They listened. But it should also make them accountable for what they did to us, for what we became to survive. Earth was shattered, burned, betrayed. We all carry the ashes. He paused. And maybe that's the point. We don't rebuild Earth. He looked at Kella in the crowd. We rise from it. When the summit ended, there was no formal vote, no declaration, just a collective understanding. They weren't Earth anymore. They were the Ashen, born from loss, driven by memory, forged by betrayal. Back on the Vindication, Joran returned to the bridge. Dale was waiting, thinner, weaker, but still alive. "I heard your speech," he said. Joran smirked. "Thought you were resting." "I was, but someone had to make sure you didn't screw it up." He held out a data pad. "Then make it official." Joran frowned. "What's this?" "Transfer of fleet authority." Joran took a step back. No, you're still—" "I'm not," Dale said. "I'm a symbol, that's all. And I don't want to become a martyr again. Symbols get twisted. You, though." He looked up. "You're real. You bleed. And you never once asked for this. That's what makes you dangerous." Joran stared at the data pad. He didn't reach for it. Not right away. He wasn't sure he deserved it. But in the end, maybe that's what made him the right choice. He took it. And signed. The Vindication launched 2 weeks later. No longer a ghost ship. No longer under Rain's control. Joran stood at the helm. Not a hero, not a savior. Just a man with too many scars and a fleet full of broken people who still believed in something. He didn't know where they were going. He didn't know what was waiting. But he knew one thing. They weren't running anymore. In the far reaches of Dominion space, a message arrived. Encrypted. Old Earth code. It read, "The Ashen are awake, and they remember." The Dominion didn't send warnings this time. They didn't broadcast ultimatums or parade fleets in the open. They sent a detonator. It came hidden inside a trade pod, masked with civilian tags. Docked at a neutral station before any of their scouts could verify. Then it exploded. Outpost Theta 12, gone. Over 7,000 lives, incinerated in one breath. No survivors, no records. The message was simple. You wanted war. This is war. Joran stood in the Vindication's war room, face unreadable, the holographic wreckage spinning in slow motion before him. Kella, arms folded, watched it burn with the same stillness. "They've started the purge," she said, "but not just of Ashen. They're targeting anyone who sheltered us." Joran nodded slowly. "That's the play. Make us poison, infectious, easier to kill by isolation." She turned to him. "What do we do?" He stared at the red blink on the star map. Dominion Fleet Alpha V, mobilizing near the edge of the rim. "We stop running." The Ashen fleet was smaller than it had ever been. Between Dominion strikes, internal fractures, and desertions, barely 30 ships remained, scattered, scarred, undercrewed. But each one burned with purpose. They gathered at Virella's grave, an ancient debris field from the First Earth-Dominion War. Thousands of wrecks drifted there like steel ghosts. Joran had fought his first space battle in that field. He remembered every scream, every fire, every friend lost. Now it would be their shield. And maybe their tomb. The council met aboard the Vindication. Dial, thinner by the day, listened silently from a med chair in the corner. Joran stood before them. "There's no retreat anymore," he said. "The Dominion has decided our existence is a threat, not just the Ashen. Any Terran descendant who remembers Earth as anything more than a whisper." Kella nodded. "Then we remind them Earth still has teeth." One of the captains, Marek, slammed his hand on the table. "We're 30 ships against 100. We'll be vaporized before we even break formation." Joran looked at him. "Then we make them bleed so hard they forget what winning tastes like." The battle began 12 hours later. Dominion Fleet Alpha V emerged from subspace like a tidal wave. Curved formation, perfect spacing, optimized kill angles. They expected a straight fight. They got hell. Joran deployed the Ashen ships into the debris field, threading their movements between wreckage and mines. The Dominion struggled to track them, forced to fire blindly. The first 15 minutes cost them 6 cruisers. Then came the push. The Dominion's dreadnoughts powered forward, blasting a path through the field. One Ashen frigate was caught in the blast, the Trillium, and disintegrated with all hands. Joran felt it in his chest. Like a heartbeat went silent. He pushed forward in Scorpion 1, leading a 4-wing squad through the wreckage, launching micro-EMPs into the exposed reactor cores of fallen ships. Each detonation became a chain reaction, swallowing enemy ships in explosions that looked like stars dying. Kella's voice cut in. 3 more down, but they're pressing harder. They're adapting." "Let 'em," Joran growled. "Make them bleed for every inch." Then came the betrayal. A transmission burst open on the fleet-wide channel. Not Dominion. Ashen. "This is Captain Merrick of the Resolute. Commander Thale has led us into a slaughter. The Ashen cannot survive this war. I have opened terms with the Dominion. Stand down and live." Kella snarled over comms. "Coward!" Joran's stomach sank. Then came worse. The Resolute turned its guns and fired on an Ashen vessel. The Silent Path. Destroyed. Their own. He'd done everything to avoid this. Every order, every mission, every firefight. Built on loyalty, trust. Fragile, but sacred. Now it cracked. Joran didn't hesitate. He ordered a breach assault on the Resolute. Personally. He boarded with Kella and a squad of 8. The corridors were chaos. Ashen loyalists held the engine room. Marek's loyalists had the bridge. Bodies stacked in the halls, smoke choking the lights. Joran moved like death itself, clearing each corner, shouting orders, taking wounds. When he reached the bridge, Marek was waiting with a pistol. "You led us to die," he screamed. "You're just another Rain with a better speech." Joran didn't give a speech. He put a bullet through Marek's chest. Quick, brutal, no negotiation. Back on the Vindication, Joran returned bloodied and silent. He walked past Dial without a word. The old general nodded. "You did what you had to." Joran didn't answer. He went to the bridge, looked out the viewport. The debris field was on fire. Dominion ships pulled back, half gone, half crippled, and the Ashen? Only 12 ships still floated. Of those, maybe 5 could still fight. He'd won. But he didn't feel like it. That night, Joran sat alone in the observation chamber. No crew, no sound, just the stars. Kella found him an hour later, sat beside him. "You saved us," she said. "I ruined us," he replied. She didn't argue. "Victory always costs something," she said. He shook his head. "I didn't want to be this. The hero, the martyr, the myth. I just wanted to survive. You did more than that." "Did I?" She reached into her pocket, handed him a data chip. "What's this?" "Transmission logs," she said. "From the neutral systems, after the battle." He loaded them. One by one, small worlds, forgotten colonies, even exiled Terran sectors were sending messages. We saw what the Ashen did. You're not alone. We're ready. He looked at her. They're rising. She nodded. Not because of who we were, because of who we are now. The final message came from the outermost rim, a system long thought abandoned. The screen flickered with static, then a grainy image came into focus. A woman. Older, strong. Behind her, hundreds of ships, Terran markings. This is Commander Rin of the 2nd Earth Fleet. We've been hiding, watching, waiting. You lit the fire. Now we follow. Joran stared. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't asked for it. But it had come anyway. Legacy. Not Rain's, not Dale's. His. Joran stood one last time at the bridge of the Vindication. Dale had passed 2 days ago, quietly, in his sleep. No ceremony, no speeches, just a folded uniform and a gun by his side. The old world was gone, but a new one was beginning. Kella approached. Where to? Joran looked ahead. The stars were infinite. But the past was behind them. Forward, he said. And what do we tell the galaxy? She asked. He smiled. Rough, broken, whole. That Earth is not a place. It's a warning. And with that, the Ashen Fleet, what remained of it, turned toward the stars. Not to reclaim a world, but to remind the galaxy what it meant to lose one.